The Evolution of Colonial Government by Owen Sr. and Curtis Jones. Before we talk about the colonial governments, we must first talk about the English Parliament. The English Parliament was a legislative body in England that represented the people and greatly influenced the colonial government. Parliament gained most of its power when the English Bill of Rights was signed by William and Mary. It was forced out on them by Parliament, who had just kicked King Charles out of England.
King Charles was kicked out of England because Parliament didn't want to have a Catholic dynasty, and King Charles is going to raise his child Catholic. The reason that Parliament didn't want this is because England is a Protestant kingdom. Replacing him was William and Mary. They were the closest Protestants in Charles' bloodline. After compromising with William and Mary so that the kingdom can be co-ruled, Parliament forced them to sign the English Bill of Rights, which gave them more power, while limiting the power of the monarchs. When the Parliament kicked King Charles out of England and replaced him with William and Mary, this was called the Glorious Revolution. It was called this because it was a revolution and no blood was spilled. These actions by Parliament caused people to question the divine right of kings or the divine right to rule, which was the belief that God chose one man and one man only to rule the kingdom. Every member of the royal family had that man's blood, and the oldest male son of him would be the next ruler of the kingdom. Among the people that questioned this were men like John Locke, Thomas Hobbes, and Rousseau. Men being, as has been said, by nature all free and independent. No one can be put out of this state and subjected to the political power of another without his own consent. This means that man gives the king permission to rule them, not God.
Locke's philosophies, combined with the representative government in England, inspired the colonists in America to make their own representative government. As Englishmen, Parliament and Locke would have great influence on them because Parliament was their leader back in England and Locke was a very famous Englishman. These influence came with them when they went to America, as they formed representative governments like the House of Burgesses in Virginia or the General Court in Massachusetts. The men in the House of Burgesses were elected by the people in the towns to represent them in government. These men were called Burgesses, and the people in the General Court of Massachusetts were chosen by the Massachusetts Bay Company. These men were called selectmen.
Reflecting back on our history, the English parliamentary system of government strongly influenced colonial government, like in Massachusetts and in Virginia, with the House of Burgesses and the General Court.
It wasn't just the poor who were having trouble, but also the nobles and the clergy, who got King John to sign the Magna Carta in 1215. This is Latin for Great Charter. The Magna Carta is essentially a charter of liberties. It enshrines the principles of limited government and individual rights. More specifically, it addresses three things. First, the principle of taxation by consent, that the king cannot just tax anytime he wants to. He's going to have to get permission from representatives of the people before he can tax. Second, the rule of law. Even the king is a subject. The laws apply to everyone across the board, and the laws will be obeyed. The rule of law will be established, and the laws apply to everyone. And finally, the concept of jury trials, that the king cannot be the judge, that someone else is going to have to run the judicial branch. So we see the beginnings of principles of separation of powers and checks and balances. What materializes from the Magna Carta is the British Parliament. which was a body of nobles, clergymen, and later on included large landowners, the gentry.